Folks, listen.
Welcome to another episode of D&M, bringing questions for you that we find interesting. We don't know until the other person says them, bring a mystery to the table for all the generations. Two people from two different backgrounds trying to make sound about the world around us. They both bringing light to the questions they ask. Dina and Michael sliding in your DMs with class. Hey, it's D&M. Hey, it's D&M. D&M. It's D&M. Hey, it's D&M.
Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 11 of Sliding with D&M. This week I have cultural and Dina has global, and I'm going to start us off this week. So my question stems from a little bit of personal struggle. As you know, I've been dealing with these chronic headaches for the last few days, and I've made the decision to go to the doctor.
Okay.
And I'm coming to terms with the fact that they're probably going to prescribe me something.
Okay.
Some sort of pharmaceutical drug. And it just had me thinking that, like, the West as a culture relies on pharmaceutical drugs so heavily.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
just why that is. You know what I mean? Because in other countries, you don't have access to the amount of drugs that we do as a society. Or you don't take that many pills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I know that in a lot of other countries, when you have a headache, right, your mother would give you some ice water and she'd say, go lay down. You know what I mean? Like, there would be no,
Some
like,
ice
there would
water.
be, yeah, like, there was no ibuprofen, there was no Tylenol. It was just, you know, here's some ice water. If they had access to ice, you know what I mean? Or it was like, go nap it off, go run in the fields, like, try to get it away.
Throw some dirt on it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's just interesting to me that, like, Western society, and by the West, like, as I always say, I mean, like, Canada, the US, the UK, France, Spain, Germany, you know, like the top GDP producing countries. That's what I consider to be the West.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just, it's something that is so weird to me that, like, we're so reliant on these pharmaceutical drugs. And yes, I know the pharmaceutical industry has prolonged our lives. It's the reason why we're able to live till 80 years old instead of 40 and all this stuff. I get that. But at the same time, like, when you are dealing with something like low blood pressure, right? Say it's stress-induced, or high blood pressure. Say it's stress-induced high blood pressure. You're given a pharmaceutical drug. You don't fix the problem. You just fix the symptom.
Yes. Yes.
So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So let me just say this. I am a huge believer that there are good things about Western medicine. There are good things. However, me personally, I have always been, if I can do it without drugs, or if I can do it holistically, I will. Case in point, and this isn't to knock women at all, when I had my 3 children, I chose not to get an epidural. And the reason why is because whenever I get shots or needles, it's not that I'm afraid of them. I like to see what people are putting into my body. I know that's probably a weird, crazy thing. So whenever I give blood or I get shots, I literally like to watch the person doing it. Now, I have no idea what they're doing. And if they're doing it right, I'm hoping they're doing it right. But I like to watch to see what they're doing. And so it freaked me beyond out. No way, no shape or how. When you get an epidural, they put the needle in your spine. And that freaked me out that I would not be able to see. So I always swore to myself that whenever I had kids, I was going to do it naturally. Now, I do sign the paper, because obviously if there was an emergency and they need to do something and you have to go into for a C-section, you need an epidural. So I always sign it. So that way, if I need to get one for medical emergency purposes, I will. But all 3 of my kids were born naturally. I did not, obviously you have an IV for fluid and things. But as far as drugs go, I did not take any, because I'm that person. I was like, I can't see if they're putting it in my spine right, and to me, that's my spine. And I had scoliosis when I was younger, when I was in middle school and high school, and had to have it corrected. And so it just weirds me out. So I just in general, I've always been one of, I try not to take meds. When I broke my ankle, um, and they send you home with the drugs and stuff, I didn't take them. Like, I, I I think I took maybe, they send you home with like, I think it was like 10 oxycodons or something like that. And I think I took maybe one and a half,
Hmm.
just because it makes me nervous, because those things you can become so dependent on. And then you see the downward spiral that people go through, um, once they get dependent upon them. And so I also think that a lot of our issues and things could be fixed if we fixed our diet and fixed our health. I think that's a huge part, you know. I think we talked a little bit about this the last time, the documentary What the Health. You had these people that were on multiple pills a day. Like multiple. We're talking multiple pills so many times a day, up to 20 to 25 pills they're taking.
And
They
that's what I'm talking
they
about, is
flipped
the
the
fact
script on
that,
their diet. Yeah, they flipped the script on their diet, and they basically wean themselves off of all of those pills except the ones that they absolutely can't not have, because their body was just already too severely gone. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think a lot of it is when you look at other countries, um, their diets are just better. They look more to holistic things. Um, I I use a lot of essential oils. I use a lot of other holistic things to help. And like I said, I try my best not to have to take drugs unless I absolutely have to. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think our approach to how we fix people needs to kind of be adjusted a little bit.
hmm but that's what I'm saying, is like you get these people who struggle with, say it is high blood pressure, right?
I have
So you
high
get
blood
put on,
pressure. I can admit it. I do have high blood pressure, which was
so
induced by um my third child. When I had my third child, I had high blood pressure. And up until that point, I had no issue with high blood pressure. Like my blood pressure was always boom on point, like every time I went to the doctor. And then I
mhm,
had my third child, and when I was in the hospital, my blood pressure just could not get under control. And so
mhm,
from that point on, which is basically now 12 years now, I've been on a very, very low dose of medication to control my blood pressure. But I will say this, it does run in my family because both my mother and my father and my sister and my older brother all have high blood pressure. So I think it would have been a matter of time. It just so happened that, it became stress induced because I had a baby.
mhm,
Right? And
yeah,
so a little bit earlier than what my primary care physician thought that it would happen, but it did. So, it's one of those things. But you're right. Like, and I tried, not only do I take the medicine, but I also try to be wary of the things that I eat as well to help control my blood pressure as well. And so the same thing, like as far as diabetics, like diabetes runs in my on my father's side. His mother, my grandmother, who has since passed, was a diabetic, and my dad is pre-diabetic. And so I have to also be very conscious of, the things that I eat and what I do, how much sweets and things I put into my body, just because, I could also wind up being a diabetic. But I think I'm taking the necessary steps to control that through my diet, so I don't have to be on medicine and I don't have to be on sugars, because I don't want to have to do that every day. Like that's just something that I just don't want to have to do.
mhm. But like that's my point, is like you get people who struggle with high blood pressure and say another few illnesses, right?
Yeah.
And they get put on these medications, which first of all are just extremely high in price, right? Like it's not affordable without a really good insurance plan, and really good insurance plans are becoming harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
So you get, say you're put on 6 different kinds of medication, right?
Yeah.
Then those drug interactions between those 6 different drugs cause side effects. So you're put on something else to control the side effects, right? And then before you know it, you're on 10 different kinds of pills.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Like I think it's crazy. Whenever you hear those, so you know me, I love Jeopardy and I love Wheel of Fortune. And Jeopardy, like if you've ever watched Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune in that hour, it is like pharmaceutical central city because every commercial, when they go to the commercial breaks, at least 3 out of the 4 commercials have something to do with drugs for the elderly. Next time, watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, you'll know what I'm talking about. Um, or it's like home improvement, like the Windows commercial, like come get your Windows fixed. So those are pretty much the commercials on, but like it's constant. And when you listen to those commercials, they're like, oh, this is going to fix this. But then you know how they speed through the
Mm-hmm.
list of side effects, and you're like, well, why would I even take that if I can have 10 side effects just to fix the one thing that I need fixed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think as you know, medical professionals, and I'm definitely not a medical professional by any means necessary, but I think we have to change our approach on how we fix people. I think we need to think about first, like, let's fix the diets, let's fix what we eat, which also comes down to like, we have to make the fruits and the vegetables more readily available or more affordable. Because, especially those that are in the poor communities, why do you think they eat processed and quick, fast, easy foods? Because it's cheap and easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not necessarily educating them and giving the tools like, okay, if you had an apple instead of, apple chips, okay, yes, apple chips are, they're a little bit better, but the fact that they're processed and they're high in sugar, you should just have an apple. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
we're not educating, which is a huge piece of it. We're not educating, and then we're also not making the foods that are healthy and good affordable for those that are in poor communities to access them so they can make better choices. And until we can do those things, they're going to continue to choose the things that are fast, easy, and cheap. That it's just, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
when
but
you're,
there's a whole nother side to it too that I think we have to touch on is that a lot of the physicians that you see have contracts with certain insurance companies, right? That's why some doctors, even if you love them as a person, you can't see them because they're not in circuit with your insurance. Insurance companies have deals with pharmaceutical companies. So there's already incentive for doctors to prescribe pharmaceutical drugs instead of doing more holistic things or focusing on they'll mention diet, right? But it's not a focus. It's never, oh, you should try eating more fruits and vegetables instead of eating junk food, right? Like it's never, that's never a conversation that you usually have with your doctor. It's always, oh, you probably should put off some weight if you want to, you know what I mean, if you want to do the surgery or get on this medication or do whatever, right?
yeah,
And the point is that pharmaceutical companies are inundated in our lifestyle, right? And they're starting to prevent other things from happening. So, a big push right now in the US, especially, is the push for legalization of marijuana. And a lot of people use marijuana to control chronic pain, right?
mm-hmm, yes, I
And
did know that.
the the thing is that pharmaceutical companies know that if marijuana becomes legalized, a good percentage of their customers are probably going to stop using their products and switch to using marijuana. So they're fighting it in Congress right now, right? And doctors won't recommend it because it's not legal. So they're doing everything they can to keep marijuana being illegal, right?
Yeah,
And it's causing, it really is like a detriment to society. I'm not saying that marijuana is a cure all or that I support legalization of marijuana. What I'm saying is that there is a focus on using their products and only using their products. And I think that's really the core issue is that pharmaceutical companies are selfish in nature. They don't care. It's all about money.
Oh yeah,
right?
they need to make money. Oh, I mean, that's like, no, of course they need to make money, right? Because they need to
Hmm.
like make money to, you know, infuse capital so they can develop new things to fix to fix other problems so they can make more money. Like, it is all about the money. I think good doctors treat their patients and listen to their patients, not just hear, but actually listen. Like, good doctors listen to their patients and treat the overall person, and not just, oh, well, let me give you this for this symptom, let me give you that for that symptom, and let me give you this. And then, all those things are going to like help whatever, but you might get these symptoms. Like, good doctors truly listen and try to think of alternative examples. And I think prescribe medicine as and drugs as kind of not like a last resort, but or they prescribe it in the hopes of that it will help to kind of trigger your body to get on the right path, and then you can eventually like wean yourself off of it. um I've been blessed to have really great doctors. And so I've always felt that my doctors, when I am experiencing things or I feel off, they truly listen to what I'm feeling, because nobody knows your body like you know your body. Right. And
Hmm.
so, you hear those stories where people go in and say, oh, I was feeling this way. And the doctor just dismissed them. You need to find a new doctor. Like, your body. I truly believe that you know your body, and you know how in tune and aware of things are, and what is right and what is wrong in your body. And so I think good doctors listen to that, and they listen to their patients and understand that, and don't dismiss how that patient is feeling. um and it's about money, which is sad that people's lifestyles and health come down to the fact of money, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's sad to say. Like, when you think about it like that, you're like, ew, like my health is based on money. Like,
Yeah, but it's the truth. It
it's
really
the
is.
truth, and it's sad. It's sad. And so I think like I said earlier, the big thing is that we need to, one, educate people, and we need to make things, more affordable, and have the resources to help people, especially. And I think a huge part of it is diet. When you look at all these other countries, like on these and countries where people, tribes that have lived for ages, they're living for ages, and they don't have any of the modern conveniences that we have today, and they've got, their elders that are living past 100, and they're out in the bush climbing the trees, right? So
Hmm.
clearly they are doing something right with their diet, with their health, how they're active, what they're doing. And so we need to look at those trends and look at those things, because, before we had, I mean, 100 years ago, we didn't really have like pharmaceutical companies. We didn't really have people creating drugs and doing this. They were fixing things holistically for the most part, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think we need to kind of get back to that a little bit. Yes, but still also have a blend of modern medicine, because modern medicine is good. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It is good, and it does help us when we need it. But we also need to get back to those holistic things as well. And we have to find a medium where we can blend the two and help people have better lifestyles by blending the two of the things that are holistic and treating the overall person and patient, and listening to them and listening to their dialogue of how they feel, and also using modern medicine. I think it has to be a combination of both. And hopefully we can get back to that. That would be a great thing to have. But I am one that I'm not a big, huge, I try not to take medicine unless I absolutely have to, because I just know my body, and, I just know that I just don't do well with medicine in general. But I do, like I said, I do have high blood pressure, so I do take something for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely on board with you. I agree that we should try to focus on coming back and doing more holistic things and finding doctors who actually care about their patients, right? But I just feel like in the society that we live in, that it's impossible at this point to do, just because pharmaceutical companies are not only involved in what you take and what your doctor prescribes you, right? But they're also involved in the policy that's being put out in government.
Yes, they are. I mean, because it's about the dollar, right? Because
And that's what's sad, really, because like you're getting all these mega corporations that are basically setting policy for years to come, right?
mm-hmm,
And how we focus and how we do things. And they're the ones who are really profiting off of it. Nobody else is really profiting off of anything.
that is true. So how do we fix it, Michael? Like, how do we fix it?
I don't know. I mean, like
I don't
there,
know either.
it's so yeah.
If I knew, man, trust me, I'd be snapping my fingers and waving my wand and be like Harry Potter, Expelliarmus, boom, and like we'd be fixing stuff and it'd be fine.
So like it's conflicting because pharmaceutical companies are a good thing. Like truly, they create products that we wouldn't have been able to advance as a society. And a perfect example of this is the polio vaccine,
Yes,
right? Polio is eradicated from the planet now, and it used to be a huge issue.
yes,
Um, so that's something that pharmaceutical companies, in my mind, is like, oh, that's a good thing, right? But that was back then, and I feel like now, like every time if I get prescribed something, every time I pick it up, I always look at the price, right? And a, a crazy example of this is, and you probably know this better than I do, is insulin. Insulin is super expensive, and they price gouge it in the US and basically make diabetics pay for life-saving medicine, right?
yes,
And I think the sad thing is that there's people that truly need those prescriptions, right? There's some prescriptions that you don't really truly like need, you know what I mean? Like
yes,
if you have something and it's just like um appearance, or you know what I mean, like there's stuff that you can, there's prescriptions that you can live without, and they just enhance your outlook on life or enhance your appearance, right? So like something specific that I'm talking about is if you have like say blemishes, right, and you get prescribed Accutane,
yeah,
that's something that I feel like you could survive without it, but it increases your quality of life, right? Because you're unhappy with it. It increases your mental wellness, stuff like that.
okay,
However, insulin, your limb will literally fall off after a certain point
yeah,
if you don't take insulin.
mm-hmm,
Like that is something that I feel like is essential for you to live, right? You're not going to be able to function without your insulin.
yes,
And it's sad that so many pharmaceutical companies have been skyrocketing the price of insulin.
yeah. And the other crazy thing is that people have to travel outside the United States to find
Mhm.
affordable insulin,
Mhm.
right? Have you ever seen that movie, The Dallas Buyers Club?
I have not.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is a you this it's a really good movie with Matthew McConaughey.
Mhm.
He was a cowboy who contracted AIDS
Mhm.
at the very beginning of the AIDS epidemic, and so he was trying to get drugs and trying to get like stuff to improve his quality of life, and the same drugs and concoctions that were here in the United States were like 3 times the price. But if he went into Mexico, he could get it for like a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, that doesn't only happen with AIDS drugs. I mean, there's
oh, it
people
happens
that
with like, I'm sure it happens with lots of other drugs. But anyway,
yeah.
so the movie just kind of goes through and how he's trying to, and then also, too, um, they were using other experimental drugs which had been proven to work in Mexico. But however, because like you said, the pharmaceutical companies here was all about the dollar, they weren't allowing those treatments to be tested or used. And so
Mhm.
they were going out and saying, don't do this, don't go through this treatment because it doesn't work. However, like there was multiple scientific proven studies that these treatments in other countries worked, but yet because the dollar at the end of the day and making money, like the American government wasn't approving those like other treatments or saying we should look into these other treatments. They were just telling people like, yeah, that's not an approved treatment. It doesn't work. Blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah. You need to use this specific treatment,
Yeah.
which come to find out, some of those treatments, early treatments that they were using, were not good for people, and they should
Hmm.
not have been using them, but they were. And so it's like with, you hear those stories with people that have cancer, that pass away. They don't necessarily die from cancer because their body is technically cancer free. They
Hmm.
die from all the drugs and the chemo and this that
Yeah.
is put into their body. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think it's a definite conversation that we need to continue, to have. But
Hmm.
I think the first thing is that we have to start treating patients and kind of, one, looking at diet, looking at other holistic alternatives, but
Hmm.
also blend in the modern medicine, because we didn't rely on modern medicine 100 to 150 years ago,
Yeah.
so I mean,
I
so
mean,
there's
I
a way to
just,
do it. We just haven't, we've gotten away from it. We need to get back to
yeah.
it.
I think that a good starting point would also be to come to a deal, like the governments come to a deal with pharmaceutical companies stating you can't charge more than a certain percentage above the initial cost to make the product, right? So, say it was even 50%, right?
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
100%. Say it costs $20 after your setup fees, and it costs $5 to make each dose of whatever, right? So say it costs a total of $20 accounting for everything. The deal would be that you can't charge more than $40 for that product.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that prevents stuff, because I think the price of insulin has gone up like 1,300% or something like that, and insulin is super cheap to
Yeah.
manufacture. Like, this isn't new science. This isn't new technology that they're figuring it out. It's it's
Yeah.
the same old stuff that's been around. They just charge so much to make so much profit off of it. So I think a good starting point would be to definitely have some kind of policy in place that makes affordable medicine for all, right? And it's not just for profit. So
Yeah.
that was my question.
Okay.
Let's move on to yours. I'm excited.
Okay. You're excited about my question. Okay. So, we're talking a lot about medical things today because my question kind of has to do with that. So, I don't know if anybody saw, but once again on TV, probably about a week ago, our President Biden got on television and kind of gave a speech about the current COVID pandemic and how things are going, and um, and how they've increased the rates of shots and things. And he was kind of going on and talking about how beginning May 1st, every eligible adult that's 18 or over is going to be eligible to schedule to get the COVID vaccine, and just how it's safe and yada, yada, yada. And I took a little bit of offense to that a little bit. And here's why. I, as in where we live at in our state of Pennsylvania, um, they have a phased rollout, and I am considered 1B because I work in education. And so for weeks now, 4 weeks, even with the new rollout of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which they had specifically allocated for those that work in education, um, I have not been able to get an appointment to get my COVID vaccine, which technically under this phased rollout I am entitled to. Um, and I say this today, I was finally able to schedule an appointment for my husband and I, which, by the way, my husband has never been out of work. He's been considered the job that he does. He is an essential worker for what he does, and he has continued to work. He's continued to actually, he has to travel for work and sometimes go and do visits and things. And so he's continued since day one from a year ago. He has been doing this, and he wasn't able to get an appointment until today. Um, I happened to join a Facebook group that was kind of giving tips of how to schedule your appointment, and if you needed help, they would help you. And so I was able to get my husband and I an appointment to get our first doses. Um, and where we have to travel is over 2.5 hours away. That was the closest place I could find to schedule to get appointments for him and I today. And so my question for you is we have our president that is out here kind of almost misleading the public a little bit, I feel as if, in the fact of giving hope, which I think is important to give hope, but at the same time, I'm also very much a realist, and I feel like I would rather you be real with me than give me a false sense of hope, especially with what we're dealing with. And I'm wondering how you feel about that.
Yeah. I mean, I've recently been sort of disappointed with a lot of the stuff that Biden has been doing. And I mean, I'll tell you, I voted for the man, so I did support him. But recently, I feel like he's been doing a lot of things that the other party was judged for,
Okay.
and I like you am very like realist about it because it's it's just ironic to me that we can judge somebody else for doing something, but we're not being better. We're coming around and doing the same thing. And I think that a lot of that has to do just with politics, and that's just how politics is. And there's very few people in government who actually care about people. It's all a game, right?
But that's the thing.
Um,
Like, it shouldn't just be like, it's sad that you're saying that that's just the way politics are and that's just the way
oh, I'm
politics
not
is.
saying that it
And
should be like that.
like,
Yeah.
the whole premise of having a new president, right? And I typically don't talk politics. I feel like politics is a very personal thing. You make your choice, you make your decision, you do you. Um, but I will say this: I when I voted, and I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but I didn't like either one of them. It was like choosing between bad and worse. The two choices that we had. I mean, let's
Mhm.
be real. And so you had to pick a choice of which one is going to be the lesser of two evils. And I had a friend post on Facebook once something that said, is it either you die by blunt force trauma or you die by 1,000 cuts and just kind of slowly bleed out over time? Those were like
Yeah.
how your two choices of what you were going to do. And I just don't like it when and I don't even like the term politician, because I feel like when you are in government, you are a public servant. You are doing service. And when you get into that terms of politics, that's where it gets muddy. And then we start talking about money, and money drives everything. And so as a public servant, it is your job to keep me informed. At the same time, it's also not your job to bullshit me. Like,
Mhm.
don't I do not like that. I have always never liked that. I do not like that. I think it's wrong. And so when he was, as I was watching him give his speech, and I think he did provide hope, and I like that he was giving updates about, we're doing this much and we're doing that. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it's not happening, because I mean, you still have millions of people that are at least in our state where we live, they like should have gotten the shot right away. They can't get an
Mhm.
appointment either, right?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. And like I said, I work in education, and by no means do I consider myself like top priority education. Like, I'm not a teacher, but what I do, I do work in education. And honestly, I want those teachers, because they're on the front lines teaching those kids. Please get your shot. I will gladly give up my spot in line. But at the same time, don't tell me, oh, you're eligible to get it, and then I'm work like, when I say I refreshed my computer today for about an hour and a half, until I finally got 2 appointments. And I don't even know how I got those 2 appointments, to be honest with you. I think it was pure luck of the draw
Hmm.
that I got them. And I was like, and the only reason why we are going to a place that's 2.5 hours away is I happen to remember. Now, this just tells you something. I happen to remember that my husband had to go out there to do some visits for his job. And so I had just typed in Pennsylvania and a whole bunch of places came up and I just kept clicking on places. And that one, I was like, oh, I remember this place. He went out there and did some visits and he had some work and some business out there for a couple times. So I clicked on that location and there was appointments that came up and I was like, click, 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 like, and I was like typing furiously because they get snapped up so fast
Hmm.
that by the time you go, you know how sometimes you do stuff and by the time you get to the end, you hit submit and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do this anymore. Right. And
Hmm.
so like, I had anxiety about it. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to get the appointment in the time? I'm like typing all furiously. And then
Yeah.
and I like, Michael, it was so bad. Like I was trying to schedule my own appointment. I couldn't even remember my birthday. That's how like freaked out I was. I was like, oh my gosh, when's my birthday? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. Oh wait, yes. Okay, 10/17. Like I literally was having like hives. And
Yeah.
so I scheduled mine and then I was like, okay, well maybe maybe I can try to schedule. So then I turned around and I tried to schedule I started scheduling my husband's. Same thing. I couldn't remember his birthday. So I'm like yelling at him. He's in the family room. I'm at the dining room table. I'm like, when's your birthday? And he's like, how do you not remember my birthday? I'm like, just give me your birthday right now. And so
So I get it. I get what you're saying, but like
like
coming,
it's insane. It is insane. It should
yeah.
not be this insane. It
I
really
mean,
should.
going back to the original question, I mean, I don't, and you may disagree with me on this. I don't think that it's entirely Biden's fault that it's so hard to get a vaccine appointment. I think a big portion of the reason why he came out and made that speech was, I think it was because they just passed the new stimulus bill, which included more money for vaccine rollout. So he's very optimistic that this new money will be able to provide resources for people like us who cannot get an appointment right now. Um, it's tough. I mean, like when you're the president of a country, you're the one who ultimately takes the blame for all of this. But we have to remember, like, he has Congress to go through.
Well,
There's He's
yeah.
estimating, but he's estimating too that he's probably estimating. I don't know who. Like, I don't know him personally or what he's thinking. But if I were him, I would be thinking, oh, well, about 30% of the U.S. probably isn't going to take the vaccine, right?
Well,
We
yeah.
have a large population of people who are anti-COVID vaccine,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I agree.
So
I know that. But I guess
so
this is
really,
go ahead.
he's shooting for probably like 200 million people is what he's probably shooting for, and that is attainable. I think we did like 4 million vaccinations in one day. I think that was our peak so far.
Okay.
So we're doing it, like we really are. It's frustrating right now because I think this is something you and I have talked about this, and it's something that we both want. And it's frustrating because the demand still outweighs the supply, right? And it's so hard to find a supply.
Well, yeah, but this is the other thing too. Like so he was when he during his speech he's sitting there talking and he's like, well, he's like it's safe. Okay. Which I yeah, it's safe. And he's like and I got mine and the Madam Vice President and the First Lady and the first of course you got yours. Of course you're going to be the first ones in line. Like
Hmm.
you are the president of the United States. Did you really think they were not going to not give it to you first? Like,
Hmm.
come on now. Let's think about this. And honestly, let's think about this. Probably those that are considered the upper tier or the more wealthy people, they probably have already gotten their vaccine too. It's like when Magic Johnson, like everybody knows that Magic Johnson is HIV positive, but he's been HIV positive for years now because he was getting those good drugs because he could afford those good drugs and he could pay for
Hmm.
those good drugs. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I look at the ones I like. It just boggles my mind and it just drives me nuts that here we are. And like I said, I joined this Facebook group on kind of on a whim because I saw somebody else said, oh, well, I did this Facebook group and I was able to get an appointment. And so I was like, oh, well, let me join it. Like, if it helps, great. If not, I, I'll just keep on trying to keep on and figuring something out. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I said, I don't consider myself kind of like top priority teacher. Like, I definitely want the teachers that are teaching and doing, the on the front lines every day working, and those essential workers and healthcare workers. Yes, please get your shot. Go ahead. Like,
Hmm.
but I also know, that you are an essential worker. I know what you do as a college student, what you do. I know what my
Yeah.
husband does. I know that even though I'm not like top priority teacher, I do work in education. I am in the buildings. I am working with students and, working with other people that work with students. So I feel like at some point, like, we have to be realistic in our approach. And I think it just hasn't happened yet.
Hmm.
And it boggles my mind. I don't like it when politicians or are public servants, and really they are public servants. That's what they are there to provide a public service for in the government, when they get on there and they kind of tout things that just realistically just aren't possible. But I also know that people want to have some sense of hope, and I'm all about like having a sense of hope, but I think we have to be realistic too. And
I
so
mean, but in all fairness to Biden, at the speed that we are vaccinating people right now, it is truly attainable that within a month and a half, everybody will be eligible. You know what I mean? Really, all that eligibility means is that you're able to get in line,
but
right?
that's the thing, you're able to get in line,
It
but
doesn't mean that you will be in line.
I
It
know,
means you're able
but
to.
that's what I'm talking about. I was able to get in line weeks ago, and yet here we are. I just now got an appointment when I was
Yeah.
able to get in line weeks ago. And so now we already have this backlog of people getting in line because they're eligible to get in line. And
Hmm.
and it's very clear when you go on the site, you put in like your pre-COVID screening things and it says, "Oh, yes, you're eligible." Or it says, "Oh, no, you're not. Please come back later. We have submitted your request." They kind of put, I guess they put you in a queue,
Yeah.
and so they file it away, and then when it's your turn, they're going to email you. But
Hmm.
like it's just so frustrating that like I just don't like it when there's you're not realistic, you know, in your expectations of
Hmm.
how this is going. And he came across as if, "Oh, it's going great. It's going well." And it
Hmm.
is not. It's going better than what it was. Trust me. Like, we all know it's going better than what it was, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's still not great, Joe. Joe. Jojo. It's still not great. And you can't be out here telling these American people that, like, we're going to do XYZ when you haven't even gotten to XYZ yet. And I think that's my biggest thing. Like, don't be telling me we're going to do XYZ when you're nowhere close to XYZ. Like, you're
Hmm.
still like JK, right? You're still in the
I
middle of
mean,
the alphabet. You're still JK. You're
yeah.
not near XYZ. So don't say we're going to be doing XYZ and then we just don't even have, I mean, and I feel like there's no, I mean, you and I both know that like there's some people in other states that, like for instance, my sister-in-law, she also works in education. She was vaccinated way back January, February. Like
Hmm.
way back, right? And she was like, "Oh, did you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not even." At the time, I don't think I was even in that eligibility criteria. And then, things changed and they like opened it up, and then I became eligible. And she was like, "You're not even in the first group." And I'm like, "Well, no, like, but it is what it is." So I
Hmm.
think there's no uniformity too. So like, there's some states where, you Alaska is like one of those states where they have a good portion of, they're starting to vaccinate a good portion of their, now granted it's Alaska. So the population is I mean, there's people there, but it's, sparse in certain
Yeah.
places. But you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so I think like we just have to be realistic. And I feel like, I think he was almost too much of a politician. I think that's my issue. He was too much of a politician in that speech and not enough of a I am a public servant. Here's the real deal.
Yeah, but to play like devil's advocate, I think that a lot like I was personally not offended by what he said. I think that his goal of everybody being eligible by May 1st is completely attainable. I think it is realistic. I'm not really offended by how he said it or what he said. To play devil's advocate though, if he came out in the speech and was like, "Well, you may be eligible, you may not. Guess we'll just have to find out." You know what I mean? People
Yeah,
would be outraged,
I know,
but that's the truth.
but see
But
that
people would be pissed.
I know, but I guess me, you know me, I am very much like, tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Let, like, I, whether it's good or bad, right? And you already said so yourself. There's going to be a percentage of people. I mean, I know people that are like, ain't no way I'm getting that vaccine. And that is
Hmm.
totally your choice. Like, your choice, you do you. Like, you have to do what's best for you. You know what's best for you, right? I
Hmm.
can't tell you that. You can't tell you that. But I just don't like it when, like, in these types of moments, I don't want you to be a politician. I don't
Yeah.
want you to be a politician. I want you to be a public servant who is going to tell me the truth, whether I like it or not. Like, everybody has that friend that's like, yo, this is the realness. Like, and I think in stuff like this, I just want the realness. And maybe
Hmm.
that's just me. That's how I operate. I want the realness. I want the truth. I may not like it, but at least you're going to keep it 100 with me and you're going to give me the realness. And I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm going to process that realness. I may not
Hmm.
like it, but at least you were keep, like, you know, I don't want, I'm not, on certain things, I don't like the sugar coat. You know how you don't like sweets? You're not a big sweet person. Like, there's certain things where I'm like, I don't want that all extra sweetness and sugar coat. Like,
Hmm.
just give it to me like apple cider vinegar. Like, it's gonna be bitter. I'm gonna taste it. I'm gonna drink it down, swallow it because I have to. I may
Hmm.
not like it, but it is what it is. And I think that was like my huge problem with that. And I say that because at the time, and I think some of it probably was a little bias on me. I was very frustrated because I had been trying to get an appointment with no such luck. Like, I had been trying and trying and trying and trying, and it finally happened today. Like, it finally happened today. But the fact that I can't even go to, which also makes me feel bad because I'm driving to a community that I'm not even from. I'm not even from that community. So in my
Hmm.
head, I'm like, am I taking an opportunity away from somebody who is in that community? But I can't even find a place in my own community to get it done.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
makes
I
it
get what you're saying.
which makes it to me like, I mean, I feel bad, but then I'm like, but I'm in the same boat as everybody else, right? Like, I, I don't know how to, like, justify that. Like, how do you rectify that? Like, if I could find some place here in my own community, I totally would do it, but I can't. So now I'm going to
Hmm.
go to a community that literally is almost 2.5 hours away, so I can get something that I know that I need. But yet now I'm taking away an appointment from somebody who's in that community that probably needs it just like I do, but I got that appointment first because I scheduled first. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's just a vicious cycle. It's ugly. I think it's going to get uglier. Like, when everybody's now eligible, right? Because right
Hmm.
now you've had, a select population. We'll go on the low end. What should we say? Like 30 million? 30
No,
million.
it's been more than that
We've
that are eligible.
Yeah, how many people are, like, right now, like, that are eligible right now? What are we talking? Like,
Oh, I would say it's probably like closer to 70 million.
70 million. Okay, so 70 million.
There's a lot of really old people in America, let's not forget.
Okay,
And there's a lot of healthcare workers and essential workers. So,
okay, so we'll say 70 million. 70 million people that are currently in whatever state you are that are eligible. And now, and we said about 200 million. So we're going to say, now we're going to add by May 1st another 130 million, but we haven't even gotten the first 70 million under control.
yeah.
Like, to me, it just boggles my mind. And I would rather you not be a politician,
Hmm.
and I would rather you say, listen, this is the deal. We are doing our best, and our best right now is all we can do. It's not good enough, but we're doing the best that we can.
But you also have to give him some credit, though. I mean, like if he got up there and was like, "Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna work out, but like we'll see," the amount of like public fear and like disappreciation of what that would have been much greater than what it is now. Like I would say that you are definitely in the minority, being like discouraged from what he said.
I
But
know, but like, and maybe I am in the minority. I probably am. I probably am in the minority that I was discouraged with what he had to say.
like his whole goal though, like with his presidency, was to bring hope and like healing to the nation.
Yes,
And
and I'm all about the hope and the healing. But man, come on. Like, you can't be out here promising crap that your ass can't cash, right?
yeah.
Like, and I like, don't be a politician.
Hmm.
Don't be a politician. In this moment, I don't think people need a politician. Don't be writing checks that your butt can't cash. And which is what he basically said the other night when he got on his thing. He was writing checks. Just like, ooh, 200 here, 300 here, writing checks,
Hmm.
telling people, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to open stuff up. We're going to make everybody eligible by May 1st so you can get in line and you can do this. Dude.
So let's just not forget though, like the previous administration when COVID first started said, hey, if like we're going to quarantine for the next couple weeks and then everything's going to be over and it's all going to get better. So like you can't predict, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that was also saying like, oh, this is how we think it's going to go. Like truly 100% this is how we think it's going to go. And it didn't go that way. And then public perception of that administration started to plummet. So
Well,
like
yeah, which is true. I mean, listen, I don't
you have to give him some credit. I understand why you're discouraged and why you're a little bit upset, but like at the same time,
I mean, listen, I think he's doing a much better job. He's trying to get the job done. Like,
yeah.
I'm not denying that. Joe, you are trying to get the job done. I'm not denying you. I'm not taking that away from you. But
Hmm.
I do think that there's a time to be a politician, and there's a time to be a public servant, and there's a time to be honest. And I feel like you gave us a little bit of politics in your speech the other night. Just a little bit of like, and I'm just not cool with
Yeah, but
that.
he's been in politics since like I don't know the
I know.
90s or the 80s. He's
No,
been in
before
politics for like
that.
30 years.
No,
Yeah.
it's been like 40, almost 50 years, which is like,
Well, there you go.
which is part of the problem too. Like, you know, which is why, you know, politic government service was not meant to be a career job. It was meant to be, you get in and you get out. And so, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need, for these people that are senators and those people that are in the House of Representatives, like 2, 3 terms tops, and then peace out. Go back to
Yeah.
your regular job. Go back to what you were doing, because that's how things evolve and that's how things change. And, you know, and these people are literally, they came in with like nothing, right? Running a ground root campaign. And when they're leaving government jobs, they have millions upon millions of dollars. What is that? Like, what, honestly, what is that? And so that was just my take on it. I just didn't, when I watched that the other night, and you know me, I typically don't watch things about politics anyway, but I
Mhm.
was feeling a little nostalgic. I was like, oh, it's the 1 year anniversary of when everything stood still. So I was like, oh, well, let me
That
watch.
was your first mistake.
I know it was my first mistake, because I mean, I don't typically watch TV, and I specifically typically don't watch things about politics. I don't like to watch it. It's not that I don't want to be informed. I just think it's just too much. Like, it's just
Hmm.
too much like negativity. I think it's just too much craziness. And so I and that was my first mistake. But I was like, oh, I'm going to watch what Joe has to say. I was like, Joe's going to come on here with some good news. And he started out great. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling this, Joe. And then like midway through, it got to be like politician-y. And I was like, oh, Joe. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, just stop, Joe. Just stop now. And so, but it's
I
all.
don't know. I'm optimistic about it.
I'm glad that
That's
you're
my.
optimistic. Like, and I think people need to have hope. It's okay to be
Mhm.
optimistic. I'm just telling y'all that, you know, he's out. Like, I just don't like it when people write checks that they can't cash.
Mhm.
They don't even got the credit for it. And he's trying to write checks already.
Mhm.
So, but to be continued, maybe the next episode, once I get my first dose, I'll let you know how it went and how I felt. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I am excited. I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, I know that it is the best thing for our family, obviously, just because we have two members in our family that reside with us that are high risk. So I know that I'm doing my part to protect them, but also know that you do you. You don't have to get the vaccine, and that's okay. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You have to do what is best for you and your mental health and your mental wellness and where you're at that moment. So, but I know this is the best thing, and especially for, my husband and myself. So we're going to go get our vaccines here in a couple days. So to be continued.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you for another good question. I appreciate it.
I know we were awfully medically today. We were very much
Yes.
like on the
Yeah.
medical tip. So, but it'll be good. But once again, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging in these conversations and these dialogues. And please let us know. Like when we talk about these things, message us and let us know and say, "Hey, this is how I'm feeling and this is what's happening in my side versus the vaccine, in my side versus medical pharmaceutical groups and things like that." So please let us know, because that's how we learn and grow and how we have these conversations, and we're able to have dialogues so we can basically do better, because essentially that's what we want this podcast to be. When we have these dialogues and conversations, then we become have a better educational knowledge base so we can do better to make the world a better place. So I am Dina McKell,
And I'm Michael Pettyhoff.
and this is Sliding with D&M.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope to see you next week.